Say hello to the people.
Hi, everybody.
This is for Mr. Brangle's first period United States history class.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess I'll just start with the first question.
Okay.
How old were you over the course of the Vietnam War?
I was actually about 15 years old when the United States became more officially involved in the Vietnam War. I don't remember really a lot about that time, except there being many news casts about the war almost every evening. When you would turn the news on, there would be something about the Vietnam War.
How did your
I was
Oh, go ahead.
no, I was from about 15 till age 25.
So, did your perspective change on the war as you grew older and as you learned more about it?
Probably not. There was a very harsh anti-war sentiment at that time. I remember a lot of people not understanding why we were in that war, thought we should not be there, and I don't really see that my sentiments changed. I probably was very naive living in a very small town in Pennsylvania, and so I really didn't understand a lot about the war. I was pretty insulated in that small town.
Okay. And how did the war play a role in your personal life? How did it affect you on more of a personal scale?
I had some friends who were going to be in the war. I remember to this day that there was a young man up the street, and I remember hearing about literally 5 doors up from where my house was that he was killed in the Vietnam War. Um, I had a friend who enlisted in the Air Force, and we remember him leaving for Vietnam, not being sure where he would be, what kind of action he would. Yes, and what I do remember is that there was a lot of negative sentiment about the soldiers coming back. This was a group of young men who were not honored or praised or respected or validated really in any way. They sort of took on the same negativity as the government and the establishment for even having gone to that war. It's very different with servicemen coming back now, and it's very sad. And I think to this day, I have a friend who served in that war, and he often will say that they felt disrespected and disvalued for having served in that war. Yeah, I remember students talking about the establishment. So they looked at any authority figure, probably like young people do today, but I think in a different kind of way, as the enemy, as not understanding, as doing things not in their best interest or the country's best interest. So there was a lot of mistrust of the government in general, just because we were in a war that no one understood.
Mm-hmm.
No matter whether Kennedy or Johnson, whoever took us into that war, there was a very intense disagreement about the war, about the people who were requiring that we even fight that war.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the closest person who I knew who actually served in Vietnam was a young man who was in my church and in the choir, and we were quite close friends. And I remember when he was getting ready to go to Vietnam, we weren't really sure if he would come back, where he would be. I don't think he even knew what to expect. He had decided to enlist into the Air Force, and so he went in as an Air Force person. I recently had contact with him, and he has had some health problems related to the Agent Orange, which was a chemical agent that was spread in Vietnam. One of the things that the soldiers talk about is having been exposed to Agent Orange, which is an exfoliant for the jungle, the heavy jungle that was there. And to this day, many veterans from that war era have health problems related to Agent Orange. I'm not sure if they're being compensated or if the military has actually agreed that Agent Orange is the cause of some of their problems. But I think what impresses all of us is that this is a war that just did not last while the soldiers were there. It's had repercussions for many, many years after that. It was very interesting at wartime that many of the songs related to the war and just promoted a college student's sentiment about the war. We would play those songs at beer parties and be very anti-war in our discussion because that was just the sort of general cult feeling on college campuses at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Actually, that's a very interesting question. And yes, there were signs everywhere: make love, not war. That's when the peace symbol was very much all over the place. It was a very interesting time. And yes, there was that hippie element that sort of dressed in the tie-dye and the bell-bottom pants. And that was just sort of the attire of the world or the United States at that time, sort of that hippie clothing. But that also represented an ideology, I think, about those people who were against the war, for love, for peace, and were very anti-war.
Mhm.